Lieutenant Du-hyun looked at the flashing red lights on his ship's control panel and felt his heart beat faster. Something was very wrong. The small research vessel shook violently as more warning signals appeared. "Computer, run system check," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. He had been doing a simple survey mission in what everyone thought was an empty sector of space. It wasn't supposed to be dangerous. The computer's voice came through with static. "Warning. Multiple systems failing. Engine core temperature critical. Emergency landing required." Do-hyun checked his star charts quickly. There was supposed to be nothing in this sector except a few uninhabited planets. He had never heard of anyone living here. The Stellar Federation's maps showed this entire area as empty space. His ship dropped suddenly, making his stomach feel light. The engines were failing faster than he expected. Through the front window, he could see a blue-green planet getting closer. At least it looked like it had air he could breathe. "Computer, start emergency landing sequence," he ordered. The ship's automatic systems began to guide the vessel toward the planet's surface. As they entered the atmosphere, Do-hyun saw something that made him blink in surprise. Pieces of metal floating in orbit. They looked like old satellites. "That's strange," he muttered to himself. "Computer, scan those objects." Scanner systems damaged. Unable to complete scan. The ship went through clouds now, shaking harder. Do-hyun gripped his seat tightly. Through gaps in the clouds, he saw more things that didn't make sense. There were lights down there, lots of them. They looked like cities. "Computer, are you sure this planet is uninhabited?" he asked quickly. "Data corrupted. Unable to verify planet status." The computer's voice crackled with interference. More warnings flashed across his screens. The ship was coming down too fast now. Do-hyun saw a dark green area below, some kind of forest. It was his best chance for a safe landing. "Computer, aim for that clearing," he shouted, pointing at a small open space between the trees. The ship's nose turned slightly, lining up with the spot he chose. Through the window, he saw something else that made his eyes go wide. A long silver shape in the sky. It looked exactly like the aircraft he had seen in historical records. But that wasn't possible. Those were human vessels, and this couldn't be. He didn't have time to finish the thought. The trees were coming up fast now. Do-hyun pressed the emergency landing buttons and braced himself. The ship crashed through the top branches of several trees, slowing down as it broke them. With a final heavy thud, it hit the ground and slid to a stop. For a few moments, Do-hyun just sat there, breathing hard. He was alive. The ship was destroyed, but he was alive. He checked the air readings outside. The atmosphere was breathable. Slowly, he stood up on shaky legs and walked to the emergency door. It opened with a hiss, letting in fresh air and the smell of trees. Do-hyun stepped out onto the ground, looking around at the forest. It seemed peaceful enough. But those things he had seen, the satellites, the cities, the aircraft, they all pointed to one impossible conclusion. He pulled out his personal data pad, which still worked. Quickly, he looked up the historical files about humanity's home planet. The description matched everything he could see perfectly. Blue sky, green plants, the right gravity, and the right air mix. "No," he whispered to himself. "This can't be Earth. Earth is supposed to be in a different part of the galaxy. Nobody knows where it really is." A sound in the trees made him turn quickly. He heard voices coming closer, speaking a language he had only heard in very old recordings. Lieutenant Du-hyun, proud explorer of the Stellar Federation, realized he had made a very big mistake. He had just crash-landed on the most famous and mysterious planet in the galaxy, humanity's homeworld, and someone was coming to find him. Do-hyun quickly hid his data pad in his pocket as the voices got closer. He needed to think fast. His emergency training said to avoid contact with primitive species, but everything he had seen told him this planet was far from primitive. The footsteps came closer. Do-hyun looked at his crashed ship and knew he couldn't hide it. The broken trees and long scratch in the ground made a clear path to where he stood. "Hello," the clear voice called out. "Is someone there?" Do-hyun took a deep breath and turned toward the voice. A woman in a green uniform stepped out from between the trees. She carried a small bag and wore a patch on her shoulder that said Forest Service. "Are you hurt?" she asked, walking closer. "I'm Jae-yun, the local forest ranger. We got reports of something falling from the sky." Do-hyun stared at her for a moment. She looked exactly like the humans in his history books, but she wasn't acting surprised to see him, which meant, "I'm fine," he said in the same language she used. His universal translator was working perfectly. "I'm Do-hyun. I'm a pilot." Jae-yun looked past him at the crashed ship. Her eyes went wide, but not with the surprise he expected. Instead, she pulled out a small device, a communication tool, he realized, and pressed some buttons. "Control, this is Ranger Jae-yun," she said into it. "I found the crash site. One survivor, but you're going to want to send the special team. This isn't a normal aircraft." Do-hyun watched her carefully. She seemed calm, too calm for someone meeting an alien for the first time. Then he understood. She thought he was human too, and looking at his reflection in a broken piece of his ship, he realized why. He looked just like them. "Can you tell me what happened?" Jae-yun asked, putting away her device. "That's not any kind of aircraft I recognize." "There was a problem with my private plane," Do-hyun said carefully. "The systems failed. I had to make an emergency landing." Jae-yun nodded, but he could see she didn't believe him. She walked around the crash site, looking at the strange metal of his ship and the symbols written on its side. "Those are interesting markings," she said. "I've never seen writing like that before." Do-hyun felt nervous. He knew about humans from his studies. They were supposed to be clever and good at seeing through lies. The history books said they were also dangerous when they felt threatened. "It's a special design," he said weakly. Jae-yun smiled at him. It was a friendly smile, but her eyes were sharp. "You know, it's interesting," she said. "Our satellites picked up your approach. You came from very high up, much higher than any private plane can fly." Do-hyun's heart beat faster. The humans had seen him coming. They had working satellites. They had technology that could track his ship. Everything he knew about Earth was wrong. In the distance, he heard the sound of engines. Not simple engines like he expected, but the complex sound of advanced aircraft. Jae-yun looked up and nodded. "That would be my backup arriving," she said. "Don't worry, Do-hyun. We're not going to hurt you. But I think it's time you told us where you really came from." Before he could answer, 3 black aircraft appeared above the trees. They moved in ways his flight training said should be impossible for a primitive planet. They landed in a circle around his crash site, and doors opened in their sides. People in uniform stepped out, carrying advanced weapons. Their leader walked toward Do-hyun and Jae-yun. The patch on his chest said Captain Ta-won, Earth Defense Force. Do-hyun realized his simple crash landing had just become much more complicated. He had found Earth, yes, but this was not the primitive planet he expected. This was something else entirely. And he had a feeling he was about to learn why humans were famous across the galaxy. Captain Ta-won led Do-hyun into a large room inside a hidden military base. The walls were made of smooth metal, and screens showed maps of Earth and the surrounding space. Do-hyun noticed that the maps were far more detailed than anything he had in his ship's computer. "Please, sit down," Ta-won said, pointing to a comfortable chair. Jae-yun, the forest ranger, sat nearby. She was still watching Do-hyun with careful eyes. "I think it's time we were honest with each other," Ta-won said. "We know you're not from Earth. Your ship's design matches nothing in our database, and we detected your entry from deep space." Do-hyun looked at the captain's calm face and made a decision. Lying would not help him now. "You're right," he said. "I'm Lieutenant Do-hyun of the Stellar Federation. My ship had a problem, and I crashed here by accident." He paused, then added, "But I don't understand. Earth is supposed to be a primitive planet, hidden somewhere far from here." Taiwan smiled. "That's what we wanted everyone to think. Earth has never been primitive, Lieutenant. Not for a very long time." The door opened, and more people walked in. They wore different uniforms, but all had the same confident way of moving. One of them placed a device on the table that showed a hologram of the galaxy. "Look here," Taiwan said, pointing to different spots on the map. "These are all the places where we've let people discover Earth. None of them were real. We've been moving the fake coordinates for centuries." Do-hyun stared at the map. "But why?" "Because we needed time," Jae-yen said. She stood up and walked to the map. "Time to learn about the galaxy. Time to build our defenses. Time to prepare." Taiwan nodded. "Humans are careful, Lieutenant. We watched other species rush into space and make mistakes. We decided to do things differently." Do-hyun thought about all the stories he had heard about Earth, about how humans could survive anywhere, build anything, fight anything. He had always thought they were just stories. "Those satellites I saw," he said slowly, "the ones that looked old. Decoys," Taiwan said. "We have much better ones hidden where no one can see them. Just like this base, just like our real cities." A new screen lit up on the wall, showing pictures of amazing buildings and advanced technology. Do-hyun saw things that even the Stellar Federation hadn't developed yet. "But now you found us," Taiwan continued. "The real us. And that creates a problem." "Why?" Do-hyun asked, though he thought he knew the answer. "Because your ship's damage wasn't an accident," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see a woman entering the room. She wore a black uniform with silver stars on the collar. "I'm Lieutenant Sun-me, Military Intelligence," she said. "We found evidence that someone sabotaged your ship. Someone wanted you to find Earth. The question is, who?" Do-hyun felt cold. He remembered checking his ship before the flight. Everything had been perfect. But now, the whole galaxy has been looking for Earth, Sun-me said. "They all want to know our secrets. And now, thanks to your crash, they might finally find us." She looked at Do-hyun with serious eyes. "Unless you help us stop them." Do-hyun looked around the room at these humans who had fooled the entire galaxy. They weren't primitive at all. They were smart, careful, and very, very good at keeping secrets. And now he had to choose: help them protect their secret, or face the consequences of knowing too much about humanity's true power. The next morning, Do-hyun sat in a bright laboratory with Dr. Hee-jin, Earth's leading expert in alien species. The doctor had kind eyes and moved with careful precision as she examined the data from Do-hyun's ship. "Your technology is impressive," she said, looking at the engine designs. "But I notice you use crystal power cores. We tried those centuries ago." "Centuries?" Do-hyun asked in surprise. "The Stellar Federation only developed them 50 years ago. We thought they were new technology." Hee-jin smiled and pressed a button on her desk. A hidden panel in the wall opened, showing a room full of engines. Each one was smaller and more advanced than the one before it. "This is our engine museum," she explained. "We keep old designs to remember how far we've come. Crystal cores are in Section 3, right between steam power and fusion drives." Do-hyun walked closer to the display. "But if you have better technology, why hide it? Why pretend to be primitive?" "Let me show you something," Hee-jin said. She led him to another room where screens covered the walls. Each one showed different alien worlds and civilizations. "We've been watching the galaxy for a long time," she said. "We saw what happened to species that revealed themselves too soon. Some were conquered. Some were tricked into bad trades. Others got involved in wars they weren't ready for." She touched one screen, and it showed a beautiful green planet. This world announced itself to the galaxy as soon as they built their first spaceship. Within 10 years, They had lost everything to more advanced races who pretended to be friendly. Do-hyun thought about his own people. The Stellar Federation was supposed to be peaceful, but he knew there were many who would love to get their hands on advanced human technology. "So you watched and learned," he said slowly. "While everyone thought Earth was lost or primitive, you were studying us all." "Exactly," Jin said. "We built our cities underground or hidden behind special shields. We made fake ruins on the surface. We even created false signals for alien ships to find." She led him to a window that looked out over a vast underground city. Millions of lights sparkled like stars, and vehicles moved smoothly through the air on invisible paths. "This is the real Earth," she said proudly. "We have cities like this all over the planet. Some are underground, some are underwater, and some are hidden in ways you wouldn't believe possible. But now I know about them," Do-hyun said quietly, "because someone wanted me to find Earth." Jin nodded seriously. "Yes, and that's why we need your help. Someone in the Stellar Federation must have planned this. Someone who wanted to expose Earth before we were ready." "Ready for what?" Do-hyun asked. "Ready to help," she said. "Earth didn't hide because we were afraid. We hid because we wanted to be strong enough to protect others when we finally revealed ourselves. But if we're exposed too soon—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Do-hyun understood now why humans were so careful. They hadn't been hiding out of fear. They had been preparing to become protectors. "I'll help you," he said firmly. "But I have one question. Why are you telling me all this? Why do you trust me?" Jin smiled again. "Because we've been watching you too, Do-hyun. Ever since you entered our solar system. We know exactly what kind of person you are, and we think you might be just the ally Earth needs right now." Lieutenant Sunma spread a collection of documents across the table in front of Do-hyun. They sat in a secure room deep inside the military base, surrounded by screens showing data from his damaged ship. "Look at these carefully," she said, pointing to the maintenance records. "Someone changed your ship's navigation system 3 days before your crash. They made it look like a routine update." Do-hyun picked up one of the documents and read it slowly. "This signature, it's from Commander Rai. He's in charge of all Federation ships in this sector." Sunma nodded and pressed a button on the table. A hologram appeared, showing a map of ship movements near Earth's solar system. Red dots marked suspicious activity. "We've been tracking unusual patterns," she explained. "Ships from different parts of the Federation have been getting closer and closer to our space. They always make it look like accidents or research missions." "Just like my crash," Do-hyun said quietly. He felt angry knowing someone had used him. The door opened, and Captain Ta-won walked in with Dr. Jin. They both looked worried. "We found something else," Ta-won said. He placed a small device on the table. It was blinking with a faint red light. "This was hidden in your ship's communication system. It's been sending out a signal ever since you crashed." Do-hyun's eyes went wide. "A beacon?" "Yes," Jin said. "Someone wanted to make sure they could find Earth once you discovered it. The signal is coded, but we managed to break it." She paused and looked at Sunmi. "It's not just going to the Federation." Sunmi touched another control, and a hologram changed. Now it showed signals spreading out across the galaxy, reaching many different worlds. "Your crash wasn't just about finding Earth," she said. "It was about exposing us to everyone at once. Someone wants to start a rush to Earth, a race to see who can get here first." Do-hyun stood up and walked to the hologram. He watched the signal lines spreading like a web across space. "But why? Why now?" "Because of this," Ta-won said. He showed them another document, a secret Federation report. "Your people have discovered something dangerous coming from deep space, something that scares them. They want Earth's technology." Jin added, "They know the stories about us. They think we might have weapons or defenses they need." Sunma looked at Do-hyun carefully. "We need to know who we can trust in the Federation. You know these people. You've worked with them. Will you help us find out who's behind this? Before Do-hyun could answer, alarms started ringing throughout the base. Red lights flashed on all the screens. Multiple ships just appeared at the edge of the solar system. Ta-won said, reading the alerts. Federation ships, and others. They're following your signal. They're coming faster than we expected. Sun-mai said. She turned to Do-hyun. We need to make a decision now. Are you with us? Do-hyun looked at the humans around him, people who had spent centuries preparing in secret, who had shared their truth with him, who now faced exposure before they were ready. He thought about his own people in the Federation, and whoever had used him to find Earth. His choice was clear. I'm with you, he said firmly. Let me help you protect Earth, and then we can find out who really wants to start a war with humanity. Ambassador Yoon-suk stood in Earth's hidden command center, watching multiple screens showing incoming messages from the Stellar Federation. His face remained calm, but his hands were tightly clasped behind his back. The Federation Council demands we return Lieutenant Do-hyun immediately, he said to the room. They claim we have no right to hold one of their officers. Do-hyun sat at a large table with Captain Ta-won and Lieutenant Sun-mai. They had spent hours preparing Earth's response to the crisis. Show them the message I recorded, Do-hyun suggested. Let them hear from me directly. Yoon-suk nodded and pressed a button. Do-hyun's recorded face appeared on the main screen. To the Stellar Federation Council, the recording began. I am safe and here by choice. Earth has treated me with respect. But we have discovered evidence of a plot against both Earth and the Federation. I request time to complete my investigation. They watched as the message was sent. Minutes later, new signals arrived from the Federation ships waiting at the edge of the solar system. 3 more ships have joined their fleet, Sun-mai reported. They're demanding to enter Earth's space to ensure the safety of their officer. Yoon-suk smiled slightly. They still think we're primitive. They don't realize we could have destroyed their ships the moment they arrived. But we won't, Ta-won said firmly. That's not Earth's way. A new message appeared on the screen. This one showed Commander Rai, the man who had sabotaged Do-hyun's ship. His face looked angry. This is your final warning, he said. Return our officer, or we will be forced to take action. You cannot stand against the Federation's military might. Do-hyun stood up suddenly. Look at his uniform, he said, pointing to the screen. Those medals, they're wrong. The positions are different from yesterday's message. Sun-mi moved closer to the screen. You're right. This isn't a live transmission. It's pre-recorded. She turned to the others. They planned this whole thing. They already had messages ready for when they discovered Earth. Yoon-suk pressed more buttons on his control panel. Our deep space sensors are picking up more ships, not just Federation vessels. Others are coming too. How long until they reach us? Ta-won asked. 6 hours at their current speed, Sun-mai answered. But they don't know about our outer defense line. They'll hit that in 2 hours. Do-hyun looked worried. What will your defenses do to them? Nothing harmful, Yoon-suk said calmly. The outer line just stops ships, holds them in place. We told you, Lieutenant. Earth doesn't want to hurt anyone. We just want to protect ourselves and others. Another message came in. This one marked urgent. Dr. Hae-jin's face appeared on a side screen. Ambassador, she said quickly. We've decoded more of the hidden signals. This isn't just about finding Earth. Something is coming. Something big. The Federation leaders are scared. That's why they're rushing to find us now. Yoon-suk turned to Do-hyun. Your people are afraid. They're not thinking clearly. We need to show them that Earth can help, but not if they try to force us. Do-hyun nodded slowly. Let me send one more message, not to Commander Rai, but to the whole Federation Council. It's time they learned what humanity is really like. Commander Minji stood at the center of Earth's main defense control room. Huge screens covered every wall, showing the positions of the incoming ships. Her uniform was simple, but her expression showed complete confidence. All defense systems ready, she announced. The hostile fleet will reach our outer barrier in 5 minutes. Do-hyun watched in amazement as hidden stations all around Earth's solar system came to life. Satellites that had looked like space junk transformed into advanced defense platforms. Asteroids split open to reveal massive shield generators. "You hid your defenses in plain sight," he said quietly. Everything the galaxy ignored or thought was space debris was protecting Earth all along. Minji finished with a slight smile. "We've had centuries to prepare. Now we'll see if it was enough." The first wave of ships hit the outer barrier. Their engines flared bright as they tried to push through, but they couldn't move forward. More ships appeared behind them, and soon 30 vessels were trapped in Earth's invisible net. Commander Rai's face appeared on the main screen. He looked angry and confused. "What technology is this? How are you stopping our ships?" Minji stepped forward. "This is your final warning, Commander. Your ships are now held in our containment field. You can either turn back, or we can continue this conversation in person, with you as our guest." "You're bluffing," Rai growled. "Earth is supposed to be primitive. You can't have this kind of technology." Minji pressed a button on her control panel. Suddenly, every ship in the hostile fleet lost power. They floated helpless in space, held only by Earth's barrier. "Your engines are now disabled," she said calmly. "Don't worry. Life support systems remain active. We're not monsters. But you did enter our space uninvited." Do-hyun watched as Earth's hidden fleet emerged from its concealment. Sleek ships appeared from behind planets and moons. Each one was more advanced than anything he had ever seen in the Federation. "Lieutenant Do-hyun," Minji said, "would you like to explain to your former commander what he's actually facing?" Do-hyun stepped forward. "Commander Rai, the stories about humans were all true. Every legend about their power, their technology, their ability to survive anything. They were warnings, not myths. Earth didn't hide because it was weak. It hid because it was too strong." Sun Mai entered the control room with urgent news. "Commander, our deep space sensors have found what's coming. It's worse than we thought. The threat the Federation was running from. It's almost here." Minji nodded and turned back to the screen. "Commander Rai, we know what scared you into looking for Earth. We've known about it for decades, and if you had simply asked for help instead of trying to take our secrets by force, we would have given it freely." The screen showed a massive dark shape moving through distant space, heading toward Federation territory. It was bigger than anything Do-hyun had ever seen. "Now," Minji continued, "we have a choice to make. We can either waste time fighting each other, or we can work together against the real threat. What's your decision, Commander?" Do-hyun watched as Rai's face changed from anger to understanding. The commander finally realized what he was dealing with. Not a primitive planet to be conquered, but humanity's true power, offered now as an ally against a greater danger. 1 month after the confrontation in Earth's solar system, Do-hyun stood before the Stellar Federation Council. The great meeting hall was packed with representatives from every member world. They had all come to hear Earth's official introduction to the galaxy. Ambassador Yoon-suk walked to the center of the hall. His simple Earth uniform stood out among the elaborate clothes of the other diplomats. Captain Ta-won and Commander Minji stood beside him, while Dr. Hee-jin waited near the main display screen. "For centuries," Yoon-suk began, "Earth has watched and waited. We learned about all of you while letting you believe we were lost or primitive. Today, that changes." The screen behind him showed images of Earth's true cities, their advanced technology, and their powerful defenses. Many council members gasped or whispered to each other. "But we are not here to boast," Yoon-suk continued. "We are here because a threat approaches that will affect us all, and Earth is ready to help." Dr. Hee-jin stepped forward and showed new images, detailed scans of the massive object moving through space toward Federation territory. "We call it the World Eater," she explained. "It has destroyed 12 galaxies before reaching ours. The Federation discovered it 3 years ago, which led to the desperate search for Earth, but we have known about it for much longer. Commander Minji touched a control, and the screen showed Earth's defense fleet. We built our forces not to conquer, but to protect. Everything we developed, every secret we kept, was to prepare for this moment. Do-hyun watched as his former commander, Rai, stood up from his council seat. The past month had changed him. He looked humbler now. "I speak for the Federation military," Rai said. "We were wrong about Earth. We thought finding them meant gaining power. Instead, we found teachers and protectors who were stronger than we ever imagined." Lieutenant Sun Mai, now Earth's official security liaison to the Federation, brought up a new display. It showed plans for sharing Earth's defensive technology with other worlds. "We will help every planet build its own protection," she said, "not by giving you weapons, but by teaching you to defend yourselves. The old stories about humanity were true. We can survive anything. Now we'll teach others to do the same." Captain Tawan stepped forward. "Earth is no longer hiding. But we're not here to rule or control. We're here to help prepare for what's coming. Will you join us?" One by one, the council members stood. They had all seen the evidence. They had all heard the stories. Now they knew the truth. Humanity hadn't been lost or weak. They had been preparing to become the galaxy's guardians. Do-hyun smiled as he watched. His crash landing on Earth had changed everything. He remembered what Dr. Hee-jin had told him that first day. Earth hadn't hidden out of fear, but to become strong enough to protect others. As the council meeting ended, Do-hyun looked at his new Earth uniform with pride. He was no longer just a Federation lieutenant. He was Earth's first official ambassador to the Stellar Federation, helping to build bridges between his old home and his new one. "Ready to begin your new job?" Sun Mai asked, walking up beside him. "Yes," Do-hyun said. "I crashed on Earth thinking I'd found a primitive world. Instead, I found humanity's true strength. Now everyone else will discover it too."